Last week we met a licensed reptile collector from Western Australia and road tested the uniquely Australian black-headed and Woma python. This week we'll be travelling to various parts of Central Australia and the East Coast to meet the bearded dragon family and discover a little bit about their natural history and suitability as pets. Because it occurs across the heavily populated east coast of Australia, the eastern or coastal bearded dragon is probably the one that is most familiar to Australians. I'm here in a small fragment of habitat about 40 minutes drive west of Sydney, still on the Cumberland Plain. And it might surprise you to know that even though this is only a small fragment of habitat, it does support a healthy population of eastern bearded dragons. Now, I've been here for about 10 minutes, wandering around, and I've already seen 2 adults and a couple of babies. Eastern bearded dragons like to gain a bit of height. This allows them to perch somewhere where they have a good view of their territory and they can keep an eye out for food, rival males and predators. And of course, this peculiar quirk of their nature allows people to find them quite easily. I've just come across this guy on the ground. Looks like an adult male. And I'm only a couple of feet away. And it's remaining completely motionless, even though I'm easily within striking distance if I was a predator. It's so convinced in its ability to remain invisible through its cryptic coloration that it will stay completely still and not react unless I actually reach out and touch it. Now, I'm going to see what happens if I actually touch it. Now it's puffing up, it's puffing out its throat, and it's showing me why it's been given the name bearded dragon, because this is their threat display. One of the characteristics of a male is a black beard, and you can see that this guy has got a black beard. An interesting thing that distinguishes the eastern bearded dragon from the inland bearded dragon, the coastal bearded dragon has a squarish beard as compared to the more rounded beard of the inland bearded dragon, and the row of spines along the back of the head are actually in a V shape, an arc of spines, whereas in the inland bearded dragon this row of spines is arranged in a straight line across the back of the head. It's also got a much smaller head, relatively speaking. This is pretty much maximum size for a coastal bearded dragon, whereas male inland bearded dragons I've seen at least twice this size. So what I'm going to do now is put this guy back on a tree and let him run up and get on with his life. The stronghold of the eastern bearded dragon is in the woodlands and dry sclerophyll forests of the east coast, such as this habitat in mid-western New South Wales. In the wild, as in captivity, female eastern bearded dragons will be ready to lay around October each year. A tub filled with about 6 to 8 inches of damp sand will encourage captive females to lay their eggs. After digging a shallow depression, the female will reverse into the hole and begin laying. The process takes about 15 minutes, during which approximately 12 to 18 eggs will be laid. Fertile eggs will be plump and white and have an embryo clearly visible as a dark patch on one side of the egg. Once laying is complete, the female will usually begin headbutting the eggs. This strange behavior is not clearly understood, but may be an attempt to spread the eggs out so they get maximum surface exposure to the soil. However, it may also be an attempt to literally push the eggs underground, as in the wild, exposed eggs are an invitation to predators. Eventually, she will make an attempt to cover the eggs, and this is the keeper's cue to transfer them to an incubator. After about 2 months of incubation at 30 degrees Celsius, the hatchlings will begin to emerge. In the wild, mortality is high, with possibly 1 individual from each clutch surviving. In captivity, 100% survival is not difficult to achieve, and hatchlings will thrive on a diet of baby crickets.
These are different color morphs, of course, of the bearded dragon. These particular ones, bearded dragons in themselves have been popular for at least the last 10 years. I've been breeding them for approximately 21 years. I think 1982 we got our first stock from Ron Shrimper, and they originated in Europe. We brought those in. We bred them for a good 10 years before we ever got any that had any color on them. The original ones came in were gray morphs. They had a little bit of orange around the eyes, maybe a little bit of orange around the lips, and that's what everyone thought that a bearded dragon was a big gray lizard, and they had a lot of appeal, even just the normal gray ones. They make great pets. These animals have been really free-range raised outdoors. We bring them to these shows, and they sit here. They should be very wild. If they're another type of lizard, they would be off over the fence by now, you know.
Over the last 25 years, the central bearded dragon has found its way into homes right across the globe. Its adaptability and friendly nature have helped it become the world's most popular pet lizard. American keepers have produced a variety of colours that never fail to draw interest at the many reptile expos and shows held there each year. They are popular with beginners, for which they make an ideal first reptile pet. Due to government regulation, Australian keepers have been slow to develop the potential of this lizard. But because all bearded dragons originate in Australia, we have a greater variety of wild bloodlines to work with, and some attractive colour variations have begun to emerge. A trip to observe central bearded dragons in the wild will increase one's admiration for these hardy lizards. The heat of the Australian outback seems hostile to life, but they have conquered this environment to persist even through the driest times, along with the ubiquitous zebrafinch, budgerigar and echidna. As with other species in the family, the central bearded dragon will have an object within its home range that allows it to get some height above ground level. It may only be a small rock or termite mound, or it may be a dead tree, such as these, which are all homes to wild specimens. A good vantage point allows it to keep an eye out for food, predators, potential mates and rivals, and it pays to keep this in mind when setting up an enclosure for your pet. Female central bearded dragons will be gravid in October and can be encouraged to lay by giving them access to a tub filled with damp sand. An average of 25 eggs will be laid, and after 2 months of incubation at 30 degrees Celsius, they will begin to hatch. Hatchlings can be started on live crickets, and as they grow can be weaned onto vegetable matter and pelletized food. Frozen crickets will also be taken, and this eliminates the need to keep or buy any live food. Quite convenient. A recent and useful development is the vibrating food dish. This makes it possible to trick your dragons into eating frozen crickets, and as you can see, it is very effective.